Hi, everyone. Thanks for this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have a highly influential guest. We have the highly impactful Annie Shapiro, Director of Talent Booking at the powerhouse Vevo, the world's leading music video network. Vevo sits at the center of modern music discovery, shaping where culture and industry are headed through original content, live sessions, and global initiatives like Discover, Artists to Watch, and their annual end-of-year charts, spotlighting the artists, songs, and cultural moments defining what comes next. In Annie's role at Vevo, Annie works closely with artists and teams across every stage of their careers, partnering with major record labels including Island Records, Republic Records, RCA Records, and Epic Records. Annie has led talent booking for some of the biggest names in music, including The Weeknd, Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande, Doja Cat, H.E.R, Miley Cyrus, H.E.R, Demi Lovato, and many more. And he's especially passionate about championing emerging artists through Vevo's Discover program, which has become one of the most influential tastemaker platforms in music. The amazing annual Artist to Watch list is now in its 12th year and has previously highlighted artists like Sam Smith, Billie Eilish, Lewis Capaldi, Ray, Ice Spice, and Chappelle Roan, plus many more. Welcome to the highly influential Annie, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, let's jump straight into it. Take us back. Tell us about your life growing up, your family, and everything relating to that.
I grew up in Charleston, West Virginia, an only child. I was a competitive figure skater from when I was 9 through college, basically, and really dedicated a lot of my life to training and sport from sort of during that period of time in my life. But as it relates to music, I never really thought about it. But my friends and I controlled the music at the ice rink. We were the ones who would make the mixtapes that would play between when people were practicing their routines and things. We had a dedicated sort of time where people would come over. We would record from different mediums. Like we were very into making sure that we had the perfect musical setting for kind of anything we needed while we were on the ice. Never really thought about how that was applicable to anything outside of my life beyond just the walls of the rink. And I went to college, and when I was a freshman, one of my next door neighbors said, "Hey, I'm going to this meeting at the radio station. You should come with me." And like every other person who had just been at college for about 2 weeks, I was like, "Sure, I'll check it out." I love music, but never again really thought anything of it except that I'd go to this meeting. My friend Dave made it about 2 weeks at the radio station. Cut to 4 years later, I had been on the air for 3.5 years. I had stayed over the summers to work at the radio station. I had been the music director my senior year. And this was kind of a very special radio station. I went to Brown in Providence, and it was a little bit outside of the college radio sphere. It was essentially a commercial alternative radio station in Market 35 at the time, run entirely by college kids. We had a professional program director, a professional sales team, a few other professionals that helped guide us along the way. But it really was a learning workshop for 18 to 22-year-olds to get their feet wet in the music industry, not just learn about programming music, but learn about the business of music. And I graduated college with a political science degree, but ambitions to move to New York and work in the music business, with my backup plan being I took the LSAT and I would potentially follow in the lines of my father to become a lawyer. Long story short, never moved on from there because I got a job a few months later at a young television channel called Fuse, kind of an upstart simulcasting much music from Canada and the United States. And I was there for more than a decade, programming music videos, booking artists for live TV, and then parlayed that into my time here at Vevo.
Fascinating. That is truly fascinating.
Yeah, it went from being truly a hobby and something that I loved to me sort of getting hit over the head several times to be like, oh, this could actually be a job.
Incredible. All right. Generally speaking, talking about Vevo, for people that wouldn't understand or they've seen Vevo about, can you just briefly explain it to people, please?
Certainly. So Vevo sits in sort of an interesting space. We are a multi-channel network across YouTube, meaning we work with artists from all places across YouTube to distribute their music videos. We have a sales team that sells advertising against that, so we help artists monetize their content. But we also have a production team And sort of my job is an extension of both the music team and the production team, where we work with artists of all levels to help them create original content to fill out their YouTube channels. We also have a growth strategy team that sits sort of in between both as well, where we help artists strategize how to be the best they can be to fans, both on YouTube and on our other platforms. And we distribute to connected TVs sort of all over the world. So really, Vevo is a network. We are a distribution platform, not just on YouTube, but sort of across all screens. But we also do some things in, sort of in the artist services lane where we work and partner and collab with artists to create content and sort of help them shape their strategy across YouTube and media.
That's wonderful. That's a great explanation too. Um, Tell me, how do you approach curating and booking talent for Vivo's original programs like Discover, live from Vivo Studios, and Extended Play?
I mean, there are lots of different approaches. I will say it's a very team first mentality. We have several different teams that sort of fall under the music umbrella. We all sit closely together. We work with different labels that distribute through us, but we also have, real human programmers that curate across all different genres. So we do sit in a lot of rooms and really just talk about music. We obviously prioritize priorities across the business. We prioritize metrics, and we sort of look across all of the resources that we have to make sure that we're booking all of the artists that are on track to be building along with us. There's also a lot of gut involved, looking at artists, looking at their plans, and really having a conversation around, is this the right time for this particular opportunity? Because we sort of have a sliding scale of opportunities that are across Vevo, and they're meant to align with artists at sort of different points in their career. So not only is it just like, is this artist right for an opportunity, but then it becomes which opportunity are they ready for? And sort of how do we tee them up for this opportunity so that maybe in another year, maybe on their next project, we're looking at something that's a step ahead. We truly think about our relationships with artists and want to grow alongside of them. So an artist might start out in something like the Discover program, which is our emerging artist program, and then sort of grow through many of our other studio sort of formats. And then we might work with them on something like extended play or official live performance. And for us, that's like the ultimate measure of success, starting with an artist and sort of building with them as they go along their journey.
Great. Tell me about the Discover program and elaborate on that. And then also tell me about your end of year charts as well.
Sure. Starting with Discover. Discover is our umbrella for all of our emerging artists content that we produce. We sort of have a couple of different levels of Discover so that we're working with artists sort of at different points in their emerging part of their journey. We have something called Discover New Music, which is a weekly feature that we put out across our socials and across YouTube pre-roll, sort of for artists that are just making their name on the platform. Maybe they're just releasing their first video, maybe they're releasing a first EP, and they've caught our attention, one of our programmers' attentions. And that we just create an asset. We don't actually even need time with the artist. We basically make a for fans of asset, really alerting fans of new music or of a particular genre, say, hey, you should watch out for Eli because we think she's going to be great. From there, we sort of have the regular Discover program, which is about 2 artists a month that will shoot either in our New York studio or our Los Angeles studio. We shoot 2 performances with each of those artists, plus an interview, which is called Introducing. The Introducing piece lives in our Vevo Discover channel, which will then ping fans to jump to the artist's YouTube channel to check out the performances. We typically do around 30 artists a year as a part of the regular Discover program, which then flows into our Artist Watch program, which we just sort of wrapped up launching at the very end of last year. And Artist Watch is our tip list of about 20 or so artists that you should really keep an eye out for over the next year. This program really has artists, labels, managers submitting artists across the board. We get somewhere around 500 submissions a year for those slots. And it's the most fun we have as a team because we sit down and we tear through every single submission and then kind of meet to discuss everything and whittle down the list as we go along. It's a several month-long process, which culminates in shooting content with every single one of those artists. We make the announcement of the list in early November and then roll out the content through the end of the year. And truly, for those of us who are super passionate about new artists, it's our favorite project to work on every year. Sometimes I find that I've found all of my favorite new artists that I'm going to listen to for the next few months just from going through submissions and listening to things. And we've also found that even when an artist doesn't necessarily make that part of the list, we've got a whole slew of artists that we want to talk about in January, February, March, as we're talking about Discover into the new year. So that's kind of where we're sitting now. We have a whole huge list of artists that we're already talking about because we're excited for them for our Discover program moving forward for the year. So that's kind of a breakdown of the different facets of Discover and sort of how we are able to support emerging artists, not just in one way, but sort of across the board.
That's
Our year-end charts are something that culminate the year for us every year. And really, honestly, they're a thing that when they're published, I kind of dive into because I'm a little bit of a data nerd. But this year, I think the most exciting thing for me was just sort of the continuing sort of global expansion of the charts. Jenny was very, very prominent amongst our global charts. Hanumankind also joined the global charts for the first time, which is the first time I think an artist from India has been on our global end of year charts. So we're really just excited watching sort of, we all internally have been watching music become more and more global year over year. It's definitely something that we stress of great importance from an internal perspective, making sure that we're representing a real global snapshot of the artists that we work with. And it's just really gratifying to see that pay off in the year-end charts, to see that fans are consuming in the same way we're thinking about things.
incredible. I can see your passion that just came out, and that was remarkable, remarkable. Can you share some examples of success stories of past or established artists?
For sure. I think one that I hold closest to my heart is Billie Eilish. I was in the studio with her and Phineas for their Discover shoot. It was 2018, part of the Artist to Watch list. Really, it was just, she had just released a couple songs and the story was building. And I had seen her live once and just you could feel the energy sort of growing like as you were standing with them in the moment. And sort of just watching that explode while being sort of a tiny, tiny part of it. There's no better feeling. And honestly, there's no really, like, that's the real reason that drives me to remain working in music is really watching these new artists sort of grow and explode. A couple years later, we had her play. We used to have a house at South by Southwest. She headlined one of the nights at South by Southwest. And just watching even the difference from when she had done Artist to Watch to then, and then the growth even further to participate in some of our other programs like official live performance, and then being able to go to an arena and see her play, whereas the first time I had seen her was in the basement of the Public Hotel in New York. Just even being a little piece of that story is such a gratifying and wonderful feeling. And just watching someone so talented go from, playing our Discover set in a warehouse in Bushwick to these massive arenas all over the world, just like really does keep you going every day, and really keeps you in tune with the things that you're looking for as you're looking to identify that next crop of artists that might break out and be big.
Sounds electrifying on what you just mentioned. That's crazy. Like you can feel the energy myself.
Yeah, it's really like it doesn't happen, multiple times a year, every year, but the instances where you get to be part of one of those stories just really do like it's a feeling like no other.
I could imagine. For artists who don't have big budgets, how can music videos still be effective even if they're not large scale productions?
So a music video is an extension of your personality, right? You don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money to make something very cinematic. I always tell artists as they're starting out, right? You have a certain budget, you have a certain amount of content that you want to make, and that is stretched even thinner now as artists are making content across multiple platforms, multiple screens. And it's sort of about being smart, right? Know yourself, obviously, in your brand, and what brand you might have across a whole project. But also know your fans and know what they want to consume. So starting from that point and really being able to tailor a creative based on the resources that you have, plus the story you want to tell, you can obviously scale that up or scale it back depending on sort of how everything aligns. But the other thing I tell people is really tap into the resources that you have. There's some really incredibly talented people making films in film school. There's some, you might have a friend who's creative and has always been good at taking photos. Tap into those friends, those acquaintances, film schools, sort of any kind of resource you can get your hand on to work with people who creatively vibe with you. And as long as you align and the vision is the same, you're going to make a product that's great, whether you spend, a huge budget on it or whether you spend something smaller. And I kind of give the same advice to people in terms of how you make and divide up content. I think that having an official music video for at least a singular song on a project is really important because that sort of sets the tone for all of the other creative assets that might come out for the project. But also, you can use your time where you're shooting that official music video to also parcel out and create ancillary assets, things for TikTok, things for Instagram. And you can be smart about how you're creating assets that are native to those platforms that reflect the same creative, but aren't just, here's a 12-second clip of the music video, watch it now. And I think basically building a creative around a project or around a song, and then figuring out how that creative applies to an official music video, but then to all the things that you will make around the official music video helps you kind of keep everything aligned and helps you keep track of how you're creating and rolling out assets.
Oh, that's a fascinating answer you said. Where do you see the future of music videos, generally speaking, going now, but also beyond and into the future?
I mean, music videos have always been an important part of creative expression, whether that was sort of at the beginning when they were more promotional assets used to play on TV, to now where they're really a legitimate revenue driver and, driving the economics for driving part of the economics for your career. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I also think we all have sort of unprecedented access to musicians and celebrities now, right? We feel like we know them because we can sort of see what they're doing 24/7, depending on how much they share. I think the music video is an important sort of piece of art that lives sort of outside of that because the artist truly has a chance to tell the story of a song or the story of a project in a way that might be completely differentiated from their personal life, and really has a chance to set up a project that you can't really do just releasing music. The visual component of it really gives artists a chance to give fans a sense of their personality aside from what they share in as a part of the rest of their lives. And so I really do see the longevity in the music video, and sort of where it's lived has definitely changed over time, and some of the behind the scenes stuff has sort of changed over time. But I really do think that it is one of the most important assets that can come out within the context of a project or an album.
Impressive. All right, let's talk about you for a moment. Looking back at your career, what's one of the most valuable lessons or a valuable lesson that you've learned?
I mean, really, it's about, and I say this, I have a 4-year-old son as well. So this doesn't just apply to my colleagues and my team, but it applies sort of throughout all facets of my life. It's really about kindness. You can be professional, you can be amazing at your job, but if you don't lead with kindness, you might not necessarily get off on the right foot. Our business is very small. The world of music continues to sort of move in concentric circles the longer you're in it. And not everyone's the easiest person to work with, but I think when you lead with kindness and you are genuine and you are doing things for everyone's own good, you really can't go wrong. And just sort of making that an ethos about taking a moment, take a breath. If something is, you don't know what your reaction to one small question, how it might be received to someone on the other side. You never know what kind of day the person you're talking to or dealing with is having. Obviously, artists, especially artists that are doing promo in New York and LA, which is when they visit our studios, usually have a list of places that they go to and a very strict schedule, sort of as they're trying to race through as many places and spaces as possible. So we really do try to create an atmosphere in our studios that fosters creativity, but also fosters art, gives artists a chance to sort of relax and be themselves and have a moment where, yes, they're working, but they feel like they're in a very safe space. And I think all of that sort of starts with being genuine and being kind.
Right. What does success look like for you personally?
I mean, success for me really looks like leaving a project and having everyone be happy with it. In terms of like individual day-to-day success, we have a lot of invested parties when we're creating content, right? And sort of my job as a booker is to make sure that everyone's connecting properly. Um, I am going back and forth between an artist and their team and our production team and our crew. And so I think the most successful days are when we make great pieces of content. The artist leaves happy. They want to come back and work with us on their next project. The crew is super proud of what they've accomplished and what they've made. And everybody sort of has this feeling of, that was great, let's do it again. Because those are the moments where you know that you've given it your all. And these shoot days are long, they're hard, they're stressful. Sometimes you have to make compromises to get everything across the line. And so to me, that's the day-to-day sort of successes, the little wins, the maintaining and building of relationships and making them stronger. I think sort of on a more macro level, success to me feels like being able to look back and be super proud of the projects I've worked on year over year, making, taking challenges, taking leaps, putting myself out there and taking risks, but calculated risks, and being able to protect the brand, protect my team, but being able to accomplish great things and really be great partners with artists and their teams, again, so that people want to come back to Vevo and want to continue to work with us, especially for my team on the content side, because we are often the face of Vevo to that section of the business. And we really want to make sure that they are satisfied with their experience and very happy to come back and work with us again.
Incredible. What are some new artists that we should keep our eye out?
Um, Sort of from our batch of artists to watch this year, Audrey Hobart is one I definitely would keep an eye on. She worked with Gracie Abrams as a songwriter before sort of launching her solo career. I had the opportunity to get to see her sort of early on play a small show in New York. And the way she tells the story is unlike no other. Really clever, witty lyrics, really fun pop hooks. She released a project towards the end of last year and is about to kick off a tour. And she's definitely one I would keep an eye out for. Also on the Latin side of things, we worked with Roa as part of our Artist to Watch campaign, and he just makes banger after banger after banger. And it's just really fun music that you want to keep on all the time.
Fabulous. What is something working at Vevo that the general public misunderstands, or working behind the scenes, that the people misunderstand?
A lot of the time, people don't understand necessarily the difference between Vevo and YouTube, because we obviously maintain, thousands and thousands of YouTube channels. And I think the distinction between sort of our distribution across YouTube, but also our distribution outside of YouTube as part of connected televisions is one of the main things that's not a misconception, but something that requires a bit of explanation as you're getting to familiar with the brand, that we're more than just sort of the logo across videos on YouTube.
Cool. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. Not necessarily like a singular piece of advice, but I had a mentor at Fuse who honestly is one of the people I still come back to if I have like a conundrum or like want just some sort of check, because he really sort of led with all the things that sort of shaped me. And it's really about just being there as a resource for your team. And I was just starting out in this business. I knew a few people. I had kind of done the radio station job, but I was still learning about booking and I was still learning about sort of programming and how the next steps in my career would work. And he had a real open door policy. He would just let me come in and sit and listen to him talk to people on the phone and make deals. And I truly learned more from those interactions, just sitting and observing and hearing him, talk to artists and managers and labels. And then following him and shadowing him in the studio, and really that learning by doing mentality, I think, is one of the greatest ways to sort of learn and come up in this business. A lot of what we do is very nuanced and sort of shaped by how you're thinking, how you're nonverbal cues, sort of how you're being in a particular place. And I think learning from him just by shadowing really taught me so many of the things that are fundamental to how I do business every day and how I speak to people and how I look at different situations. And so it's not like a singular piece of advice, but it's really about like learning by doing and being a good example and being able to kind of shape the next gen's pathways by like just doing my job well and being available and around to help. I think is one of the things that I always tell people kind of as they're becoming managers and as they're sort of taking the next steps of their career, is really about like showing them by example and being true to yourself and being the best you can be at your job, but being an open door and allowing them to kind of see how that works in your brain as much as you can.
Marvelous. What's something you would say to your younger self?
Just to have the confidence to do it. I definitely, at times in my career, have been tentative and been sort of afraid of what the next step might be, or afraid of, too much change at once, because who knows what's going to be on the other side of that. And I think I've learned sort of over the course of the long haul, it's like, even if the change is hard, it's still exciting. And so just approaching things with confidence, again, kindness, and really like leading with what you know and being adaptable really will get you through any situation. So don't be afraid of what's next. Don't be afraid to make that left turn. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and try something new, because all of those learnings amass into the next level of confidence and sort of the next level of your career. And I definitely would tell myself to kind of do it soon and just keep your head up and really carry on, because like you're going to get there and it's going to be great.
Impressive career. What would you like your legacy to be when you look back? When it's all said and done, what is your something that your legacy? Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's about the imprint I'm leaving on the team and sort of like the next generation of folks who want to be bookers, who want to work in music, especially women who want to work in music. When I was younger, there were far less women doing this. And it's been really awesome to see, sort of as I've continued to grow, more and more women getting involved in music becoming way less male dominated than it was sort of at the initial portion of my career. And so really my legacy, the amazing bookings that I've done, I will always look back on and be proud of. But I think the true legacy is making sure that the next generation of folks that I've had a hand in helping train and had a hand in helping shape their career are killing it, doing the best job, and really carrying on sort of the ethos and the mentality that we all operate under. Because to me, being able to pass that forward to the next generation is really what's important.
Significant. How do you handle difficult decisions?
A lot of talking. I I tend to try to not make decisions, especially ones that are significant, right away. I try to process as much information as I can, but also allow myself to take a beat, whether that's a weekend, whether it's a day, whether it's, a couple of hours, depending on the circumstance and the timing. But really try to make sure that like maybe my first instinct isn't the right one, and knowing that like you can take a second, you can have a few minutes to think and sort of think through the other side of things as you're trying to figure out what might be best for the next course of action. Sometimes in the studio, you don't have that luxury, right? You have to make a decision in the next 2 minutes because someone's waiting on their next steps. But for me, it's about like removing myself from the situation and really being able to put on my practical brain and think through, here are the consequences of this, here are the consequences of that. How can I speak to someone to like be real with them about, here's what's going to happen if we choose this path, here's what's going to happen if we choose that path, here's my thoughts on the best path forward, but I want your collaboration and your input, because I really think that, making being able to account for as many people's thoughts and feelings is also really important in those times, especially when we're talking about like next steps going on in a production studio where you have teams of people on this side working hard to get things done and artist teams on this side who are also working hard to make sure the content that's going to ultimately live within their YouTube channel is something that they're proud of. So really it's about like being practical, really being making the best decision for all the parties that are involved and making sure you have a moment to think so that you can be confident in that thinking.
Wow, that's an incredible answer. Wow. Um, if you were 18 again and you could change anything, you could go back in time. You could be personally or professionally, what would you change?
Hmm. That actually is a great question. Um, I truly have only had two jobs in my like 20 plus year career. And honestly, I wouldn't change that because I've had the opportunity in both places to be able to pivot and grow in different directions and learn different facets of the same parts of the business. But maybe adding somewhere in the middle of all of that, working in a totally different part of the music business to just sort of have tried my hand on the label side of things or on the management side of things, just to fully round out my experience. I mean, at this point, I have been working talent adjacent for so long. I sort of understand that side of the role, at least from my perspective. But maybe adding in a few years of having worked on the other side of the business would be something that I would go back and change. But ultimately, I'm just so happy with my path and happy with sort of the way I've been granted the time to develop and really hone one specific skill, that there really isn't that much I would change.
Marvelous. And what's the best compliment you've ever received?
I think the best compliment I've ever received was, and it kind of continues to happen in our studios, just like how comfortable people feel in working within the context of our studios. And whether that's our directors who are amazing, who really like work on having a personal relationship with each artist and making sure that they're being collaborative in every step of the process, or whether that's an artist team who like needed help with something on the side while their artist was performing and we were able to help out with something so that we made part of their journey to the next location more smooth and more seamless, and really creating an environment where people feel comfortable, feel at home, and again want to return to. I know I keep coming back to that theme, but it is something that I'm really proud of and something that we've really been able to cultivate here.
Amazing. Annie, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. I've had an incredible time interviewing you, and you've given sensational answers. I wish you, Vevo, the Discover program, end of year charts, everything relating to Vevo, all the best.
Thank you. It was really nice to meet you.
It was really nice to meet you too.